Welcome to the Wellness Lab Digest, where we help you to absorb powerful, life-changing insights from top wellness experts with our daily bite-sized wellness podcast summaries. Each episode is packed with distilled, powerful takeaways to boost your health and well-being. To support this podcast, please scroll down on whatever app you're listening. Ratings and reviews are helpful. Even better, just send the show to a friend. Check out our sponsors at the bottom of the page, or simply click the Support the Show link below the episode description. This is part one of a three-part series on how to build strength, endurance, and flexibility at any age. Be sure to check in tomorrow for part two. Here's something that will blow your mind. Studies show that people in their 80s can increase their strength by up to 175% through proper training. Today we're exploring how strength, flexibility, and endurance can be developed at any age, and the science behind it is fascinating.
You know what's really interesting about that statistic? It completely challenges what most people believe about aging and physical capability.
And here's what's even more surprising. Many of these older adults who achieve remarkable strength gains weren't particularly athletic in their younger years. Take the work of strength coach Pavel Tsatsouline. He's documented cases of people in their 70s and 80s doing multiple pull-ups every week.
That really makes you question everything we think we know about aging and physical limits, doesn't it? What's the science behind this?
Well, it comes down to something called neural adaptation. When we train consistently, our nervous system becomes more efficient at recruiting muscle fibers. Tsatsouline talks about this concept called greasing the groove. Instead of destroying yourself with intense workouts once a week, you do moderate strength work more frequently.
That sounds quite different from the typical no pain, no gain approach we usually hear about.
Exactly. Think about it like learning to play an instrument. You wouldn't practice until your fingers bleed once a week. You'd practice a little bit every day. And here's what's fascinating. This approach actually leads to better strength gains over time.
So, what are the key exercises that make the biggest difference?
Tsatsouline focuses on three fundamental movements: the narrow sumo deadlift for posterior chain development, the Zercher squat for overall stability, and the bench press for upper body strength. But here's the interesting part. It's not just about the exercises themselves, it's about how you approach them.
You know, I've noticed you haven't mentioned anything about fancy equipment or complicated routines.
That's because, and this is crucial, strength training doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, Tsatsouline argues that mastering a few basic movements is far more effective than constantly switching between different exercises. And get this, research shows that grip strength alone is one of the best predictors of overall longevity.
Well, that's fascinating. How does grip strength connect to longevity?
So here's the thing. Grip strength is like a window into your overall nervous system health. Studies have found that people with stronger grips tend to have better cardiovascular health, lower rates of cognitive decline, and maintain their independence longer. And you know what's really cool? You don't need special equipment to train it.
That makes me think about how this could impact healthcare costs as our population ages.
Oh man, the economic implications are huge. Studies suggest that strength training in older adults could reduce healthcare costs by up to 30% through prevented falls and improved mobility. But here's what people often miss. These benefits aren't just for older adults.
So how does someone actually get started with this approach?
Well, it's actually simpler than most people think. You start with basic movements, maybe wall push-ups, chair squats, or assisted pull-ups. The key is progressive overload, gradually increasing the challenge over time. And here's what's really important. Form comes before everything else.
That sounds much more approachable than what we typically hear about fitness programs.
You know what's really cool? The mental benefits are just as significant as the physical ones. Research shows that strength training can improve memory, reduce depression symptoms, and even help protect against cognitive decline. Like we're talking about a 30% reduction in the risk of dementia in some studies.
Those are some pretty impressive numbers. How long does it typically take to see results?
Well, the research shows that people can start seeing strength improvements in as little as 2 weeks. But here's the really interesting part. The benefits compound over time. Studies have found that consistent strength training can lead to a 50% reduction in fall risk after just 6 months.
That's incredible for such a relatively short time period.
Right? And here's another mind-blowing stat. Proper strength training can increase bone density by up to 3% in just 6 months. That's huge when you consider that we typically lose 1% of bone mass per year after age 40.
So, what would you say are the key takeaways for someone listening to this?
First, strength training is possible and beneficial at any age. Second, consistency trumps intensity. It's better to do a little bit regularly than to go all out occasionally. And finally, the benefits go way beyond just muscle strength. We're talking about better cognitive function, improved longevity, and enhanced quality of life.
That really puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? This isn't about becoming a competitive athlete. It's about building a foundation for a better life.
Exactly right. And I think that's the perfect place to wrap up. Remember, everyone, strength isn't just about lifting weights. It's about building a better future, one movement at a time. Thanks for listening, and be sure to listen in tomorrow for part 2 of this 3-part series. Thank you for listening to the Wellness Lab Digest. If you have received value from the podcast, I have 3 asks of you. 1, share the show with your friends and send them a link to the show. 2, please leave a rating and review in whatever app you're listening. And last but not least, please let me know what topics you would like us to cover in the future. You can contact me by sending me a message using the Send Us a Text link below the episode description.